Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and I just said in the previous video that I'm going to be doing reviews of some of the movies which are among my favorites. Some are really famous movies, some are popular movies, and I haven't done them on this channel because I watched them a while back and for the first time. But I'm going to be rewatching all of these movies again after many. Most of them are I've watched at least 10, 15, 20 times. But yeah, I am going to do reviews of those movies. Starting off with one of my favorite horror films, like I mentioned in the previous video, but I showed you the like over there, the box set for the Omen Pentology movie franchise, a movie series, sorry. And we're going to start with the Omen that came out in 1976. And fun fact, I was born that year, so maybe I am the Antichrist. All right. So The Omen is a 1976 supernatural horror movie directed by Richard Donner, and it is starring Gregory Peck, amazing, of course, classical actor, Lee Remick, David Warner, love that actor a lot, Harvey Spencer Stevens, Billy Whitelaw, and Patrick Troughton. So the movie basically is about Damien Thorn, who is the Antichrist. He is the son of Satan. So in this film, Gregory Peck plays a diplomat named Robert Thorn. He and his wife Kathy are living in Rome when she gives birth to a baby boy who dies at childbirth. Although Robert is devastated, a priest who's at the hospital, the chaplain, Father Spiletto, he tells him, your wife doesn't need to know, you can actually adopt a baby. And he tells him that there's a baby whose mother had just come in and died in childbirth, and there's nobody to claim the baby, so the baby would go to an orphanage. Instead, he can just what kind of priest actually tells that? But he says, you'll be doing the kid a favor, you'll be doing your wife a favor. And Robert thinks his wife will be devastated and might not recover from the fact that her child is going to be stillborn, that her baby is dead. So he does what a loving husband does, and doesn't let her know that her son is dead. Instead, he shows this baby and pretends that he's their son. I don't know about exactly why he thought that. What exactly he asked for his actual sons remains to be done. We don't really get to know. That's not discussed at all. Anyway, Robert succeeds in his work, and 5 years later he's appointed to the United Kingdom's ambassador role for the United States, and there's when all the things start to happen. So there's a few things that I'm going to put them down. There's the scary looking Rottweiler that comes at their estate. Damien's nanny kills herself on his fifth. Young sweet nanny, she actually gets possessed or something by the Rottweilers staring at her, and she goes and hangs herself on his birthday party with a lot of people watching, and instead Mrs. Blaylock, who's a replacement nanny, although she just kind of comes out of nowhere, she basically says the agency sent her. They accept her credentials, and she is actually a disciple of a satanic cult, and she's here to protect Damien, so she comes as the new live-in nanny. Another scene in which they are going to attend a wedding at a church, and Damien, who's all quiet in the car, goes, as they reach the church, he starts screaming and violently resist getting out of the car, so they leave the church and do not go inside. And at a safari in UK with a lot of animals around, they all get scared on seeing Damien, because they know what the humans don't know, that he's actually the devil's son. A priest named Father Brennan also comes in and warns Robert about Damien's origin, saying he's not human, that his mother is actually a jackal, and that Kathy is now pregnant, and that Damien will kill the unborn offspring and parents unless he is killed. And later on, Father Brennan is killed by in a freak kind of accident. Well, not really an accident, but it's the devil working over there. Just as he's reaching a church, He's killed by a failing lightning rod that slices him like this. I mean, that goes through him at an axis. Kathy is knocked over by a railing by young Damien riding his little tricycle. They think it's an accident. She falls to the ground and she has a miscarriage. So slowly but surely, Robert is having doubts about his son. And then the photographer Keith Jennings, played by amazing David Warner, he noticed that there are these lines that actually kind of like predict the death of characters, especially he sees it on the nanny and Father Brennan, basically foretelling their deaths. So he manages to show Robert the photos and citing biblical passages that talk about the rise of the Antichrist or the coming of the Antichrist. Robert is curious enough to go along with Jennings to Rome, and they try to investigate Damien's birth. However, when they reach there, they find that the hospital that's connected to the church where he was born has burned down. All the records have been lost, and Father Spiletto is in a monastery, severely burned. He's mute and he's blind and partially paralyzed. He does lead them on to a particular cemetery, very eerie, spooky place. When they go there, they find Damien's mother's grave. They open it; it's a jackal, and the Antichrist is supposed to be born from a jackal. I don't know why, but they find the dead the carcass of a jackal, and next to it they find a child skeleton with a shattered skull, and that's actually Robert Thorne's and Kathy's actual child, and he starts mourning them, but they are chased away by a pack of wild Rottweilers. They also go to Israel after this to meet the Antichrist expert, a professor named Karl Brugenhager in Israel, and he tells them that if Damien is the actual son of Satan, then he will bear a birthmark which is under his scalp, and it's in the shape of 3 sixes, so 666. So he also gives him these 7 daggers. I forgot the name of the daggers, but they are supposed to be the only weapon that can kill the Antichrist, and he has to kill him on hallowed ground, basically a church. Thorne is shocked at the suggestion, but Jennings is actually convinced. However, he is next on the kill list. He is decapitated by a flying sheet of glass, which when a truck backs up and breaks, the glass comes off and decapitates his head. This makes Robert convinced. His wife is now dead, killed by the nanny, Mrs. Blaylock. So when he goes home, it's just him and the son and Mrs. Blaylock are there. So he goes with the daggers. He goes to the house. He has to fight off the Rottweiler as well as Mrs. Blaylock, who he kills, and then he drags a screaming Damien to a cathedral, and because of his driving, the cops notice and they go behind him, including the chief of police. He tries to kill Damien in the church, in the cathedral, at the altar, and he's like, he says, "Daddy, no," and then he says like, "God give me the strength," but before he can kill Damien, he is shot by one of the cops, and he dies. So a little later, the ending scene is what you see is the double funeral of Kathy and Robert, and it's attended by the United President, U.S. President, the U.S. President and the First Lady, and they have Damien with them. So he is basically now going to be the ward of the current U.S. President. And as the movie ends, the camera pans onto the back of young Damien, and he turns around and gives you the most chilling smile that I have ever seen in a movie. And it's actually innocent, but when you think about the fact that he's supposed to be the Antichrist, that smile is creepy, and that ominous music goes on as the credits start to run. Classic horror. Amazing film, but like I said, I've seen it many times since then. I think I've watched it probably like 6 or 7 times by now, with the exception of the. I mean, I'm not counting the first time that I watched it because I was way back. But yes, I love this movie. It's one of my favorites. I don't really count it as one of my favorite horror movies. No. I'm counting it as one of my favorite movies of all time. So yeah, fantastic movie, and Gregory Peck was amazing. Uh, so yeah, what can you say? This movie gets a 9 out of 10 from me because it's that good. I really like the fact that David Warner is in this movie because I kind of loved all the roles that I've seen him in Star Trek and otherwise. So yeah, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, forgot about that. So this movie is actually amazing. Of course, I'm an atheist and I do not believe in. I'm not from the Catholic background anyway. Not from a Christian background. My family's Hindu, but I don't really believe in any of this stuff. But it makes for compelling film. So yeah, I absolutely love this, and I can watch many of it. Just want to say one more thing. There is a prequel movie that's actually coming up. It's supposed to be before the events of this movie. So not really sure exactly what's it going to be, but Bill Nye is in the movie, and Bill Nye is a guy who I really like watching as well. So yeah, 9 out of 10 for me. Fantastic classic horror movie, and one for the ages. And I think it's still pretty creepy to watch. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.